very rare that a new title comes along and makes you feel like you've truly never experienced something like it before. South of Midnight, the brainchild of developer Compulsion Games, immediately made that feeling apparent when its protagonist stepped on screen to the tune of Reverend Gary Davis during the initial reveal trailer at Summer Games Fest 2023. The sounds of the bayou backdropped with soulful blues music and the presence of southern folk legends set the tone for what would be my most anticipated game going into 2025. Fast forward nearly 2 years later, and South of Midnight is finally here. So let's find out how it stacks up with the rest of this year's Xbox lineup. South of Midnight kicks things off with an introduction to Hazel, a young woman from the fictional town of Prospero in the American South. Hazel and her mom Lacey find themselves in the thick of a looming hurricane and soon become separated after the brewing storm sweeps Lacey and their family home up the river. Hazel sets out on a mission to rescue her mom, and it's here at the onset of her journey that she discovers she has the ability to weave, a talent gifted to her by the power of the Grand Tapestry. This power grants her a supernatural capability to mend and heal the spirits of Prospero's ancestors as they navigate the traumas they dealt with in their former lives. The game uses these individual stories as a vehicle to move Hazel from point A to point B, utilizing the spirits and folklore of the South as a driving motivation for her to do right by the downtrodden while also investigating the whereabouts of her mother. This style of storytelling left me feeling a bit indifferent on the game's narrative structure as a whole. On one hand, I love that Compulsion ushers you from one locale to the next, never letting any bit of the world overstay its welcome. Every 30 minutes to an hour, you're introduced to a new character or a new environment, which left me consistently awed by the rich lore and fun inhabitants of Prospero. The conflicts presented in each biome also deliver quite a bit of real-world meta-commentary around the topics of institutional racism and the long-standing implications of slavery in the Deep South, which I found to be a refreshing juxtaposition between Prospero's stunningly beautiful environments and the dark past of the communities that reside there. Now on the flip side, I was presented with a bit of an internal conflict. Because most of the characters in South of Midnight kind of come and go, by the time I rolled credits, I'd been teed up for quite a few plot threads that either never saw a resolution or fell a bit flat on their final outcome. Even the overall mission structure left a bit to be desired, using chapter-to-chapter recaps that filled the gaps between each level, but sometimes they just made me feel like I had maybe missed something. My biggest beef was with the final act of my playthrough, as South of Midnight ramps you up to an epic conclusion that kind of just ends abruptly. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty to love with the character interactions throughout, the epic folklore that was long overdue for a video game adaptation, and the representation of a marginalized community that we see so little of in modern gaming. I just wish that the central narrative that tied the whole thing together had a prettier bow on it. Now in terms of actual gameplay, you'll follow a pretty simple loop as you navigate your way through the world of Prospero. Moving through Compulsion's beautifully animated stop-motion environments means there are plenty of sights and sounds to enjoy, whether it be the game's breathtaking vistas, ever-present wildlife observing your every step, or incredibly detailed and interwoven musical themes that more or less work to complement the narrative. In the effort of really driving home the plot through lines, one of South of Midnight's strongest features is its attention to the musical nature of the American South and how it ties back to the region's culture. During each campaign mission, you'll find that story progression helps build the background music in meaningful ways as you learn new details. So while you may start a level with the skeleton of a track, your work within the world will almost always result in a bombastic, fully realized song that usually scores a mission's final encounter. Step by step, it's like you, the player, have a hand in adding new sections to the soundtrack, from new instruments to background vocals to verses. This integration of music within the game's plot and themes will go down as one of the most impressive facets of South of Midnight. Capping several multi-mission arcs with tense boss battles scored by triumphant blues bangers will easily be some of my favorite moments in gaming this year, and I feel like you'll be hard-pressed to find another moment to top them. When you're not taking a second to enjoy the soulful sounds of the South, you'll take part in several small platforming puzzles and instance combat encounters. To be honest, this is really where the game started to fully unravel for me. I'll start by saying that the actual movement in South of Midnight feels good. Jumping, gliding, and maneuvering through the world is tight, responsive, and overall just fun to do. But the context within which you do those things is kind of a letdown. First, let's talk about exploration. South of Midnight is a giant hallway. Now, Don't get me wrong, it's a stunning ass hallway, but you really are just ushered from one beat to the next with very little room to actually adventure outside of what's required. When the game does present you with an alternate route to go off the beaten path, you'll always find one of three things: currency to upgrade your abilities, currency to upgrade your maximum health, or collectible journal entries to further enhance the history of the world. I found the collectible lore interesting, and it really does add to the personality and backstory of Prospero, but those bits are dwarfed by the number of times you come across yet another set of upgrade points. To top it off, when those alternatives are presented, you never have more than one additional option, and you even have an ability that directs you to the main objective. So discovery really just boils down to, oh, you've reached a fork in the road? Well, press your right thumbstick and just go the opposite way. Combat offers a similarly predictable nature as well. There are no overworld encounters in South of Midnight, so all enemies are entirely isolated to these instance situations that feel great at first, but quickly become so repetitious that I got to a point about halfway through the campaign where I was ready to use an accessibility option that lets you turn them off completely. While fighting feels crunchy and responsive, every single encounter follows the same pattern of entering an arena, defeating 2 to 3 waves of enemies, and cleansing the environment. I can't help but feel like there should have either been more moment-to-moment in-world encounters with spotted arenas, or just none at all. I think this would have allowed Compulsion to have a much clearer gameplay focus around either full-blown exploration and more open environments, or comparable exploration with more fully realized and less predictable combat. Now, with all that, I know I've been all over the map here, and to be honest, that's pretty indicative of my time with South of Midnight. When it comes to the overall vibes and the unique approach to the familiar but long underrepresented lore of the American South, Compulsion absolutely nails it here. The characters, music, and environments on display, all expertly represented with top-notch voice acting and beautiful animation, are truly one of a kind. The world of Prospero really is a sight to behold, absolutely dripping with style and flair. So much so that I would 100% welcome a return in due time, but when it comes to the actual gameplay loop during the 10-hour campaign, I couldn't help but feel underwhelmed by the repetitive beats and lackluster combat. That being said, South of Midnight feels like the kind of game that has me optimistic about what the developer's next title will have in store, and whether it's a sequel or an entirely new IP altogether, if they can tighten up some of my overall gripes with moment-to-moment gameplay, without a doubt, I think they'll weave a masterpiece in no time.